and I am your relationship and results coach. And so excited to share with you this day where we're going to talk about our episode number 3 of why relationships fail. And maybe you can tell me, what do you think is one of the main reasons why relationships might fail? And I'll tell you on my end, what is it that when I work with people, what I've seen in many people's lives, in my own life, is what happens when we are not having the relationship that we want, and what happens, what is it that the stories that we tell ourselves, and what goes on when we are having turmoil and we are having a difficult time, and we don't know how to enter relationships in such a way that we end up breaking apart, that we end up commitments that we made to each other. And so I want to welcome you. Let me know where you are signing in from. We're talking about why relationships fail. And I was talking to some people recently about their own relationship and what was some of the turmoils. And you know what we're going to be talking about today? One of the main reasons why relationships fail. And it is none other but because there is a difference of opinion. Somebody drum roll. Yes, you can say, yes, Soraya, I agree with you. Hashtag yes, me. I know what it is to be with somebody where we just don't seem to agree on certain things, right? There might be other things where we are totally in agreement, but then other ones is like we're crossing paths and everyone's going a different direction. Has that happened to me? Let me know. Drop it in the comments. And I'm so excited that we get to be here today and share with you about this very same topic. So the main reason that we're going to talk about, besides having dogs that interrupt your lives, right? Let me introduce you to Kathy. Kathy is not happy right now because she was being put in a room with other dogs because we had visitors earlier, and now she just wants to play. And that might be an issue, right? When you have dogs, when you have other things that maybe you don't even agree to. So what are some of the things that you don't agree? Let me know. Share with me, because I'm going to give you 3 tips to what to do when you are encountering a situation that is turmoil and you go your own way because things don't seem to really work on your favor. So what is it that happens? Well, number 1, let's talk about amidst of our differences. Like, relationships fail because of lack of agreements, because of difference of opinions. So I'm going to tell you something very powerful that I tell couples when I work with them is and ask you a question first. And I'm going to ask you, if you're a business owner, do you realize that you have set up different programs or different documents to set up your business, right? There's something that is called an operations agreement, right? So you have that document that establishes when you're doing what, who's doing when, who does what. So that is a document that clarifies what is the base, what are the foundations, there's so many things there that establish, so that whenever you have a disagreement, you can refer to something that has a base and that is giving you a foundation to move forward to. Well, here's the question of the day. If that is something that you do for a business, which is something huge, what about one of the most significant relationships that you can have ever in your life, or even your own marriage, right? That's what I'm talking about. Have you had an operation agreement for your marriage, for your relationship? Who's going to do what, who does when, and what do we do to agree? What is it that we do when we're not necessarily in agreement? So it's like starting to agree to disagree. So there's a good number of things. And what I'm going to do is simply share with you what is one thing that you can do today. I'm going to give you 3, but one thing that you can do today is create, number 1, super important, is create agreements. Create agreements with that person. Because if you don't, what happens is that there's a lot of expectations. And we talked about it in the first week, right? Expectations are killers of relationships. They totally kill your relationship because you're expecting somebody to do something for you. You're expecting somebody to come through, to pamper you, to cater to your needs. And you're expecting them, but you never really talked about that. And we have expectations that are cultural. We have expectations that are subcultural. And we have expectations as gender expectations, right? One of the expectations that are gender related is that in a marriage, women get married expecting, hoping that their husband can change, right? Like he can change. I see these things, I don't like him. I'm hoping that he changes. I know he can change. How many times have you heard your friends, your girlfriends talk about that and say, I hope, I know that he can change that, right? So women get married and the expectation that he can change. Let's talk about men. When men get married, they are saying, I'm hoping that she doesn't change, right? Hashtag yes me, been there, done that. Yes, so that's what happens. We have those expectations, and of course, they do not work. And what happens is we end up in sour moments. We end up in difficult situations. So I'm inviting you to do something for you, for your life, for your own relationship. And it's not to have those expectations. So number one is have clear agreements, not expectations, but clear agreements. Hey, this is how we roll it. Do a brainstorm. What are things that are important to you? What are things that are important to me? How can we make this happen? How do we scratch things off our bucket list? And yes, you can do that. So that is number one. Number two. So number one is create agreements. And number two is commit to you making the most of the relationship by you showing up in a way where you make it happen, right? Here's a phrase that I'm going to give you for point number two. If it's to be, it's up to me. If it's to be, it's up to me. That means that I'm not going to wait for my spouse to come and apologize. I'm not going to wait for them to come and do things right. I'm not going to wait for them to start doing things. If you really want to build a lasting relationship, and that's the kind of relationship that I am talking about, I'm not talking about a one-night stand. I'm not talking about something that is a summer fling. I'm talking about if you want to build an oak, not a squash, but an oak of a relationship, then these are the foundational principles, right? So what I'm inviting you to do is to have a conversation with your significant other and say, you know what are the things that are important to us? What are the things that how do we create that amazingly fulfilling relationship? How do we spice up things for us? How do we meet each other's needs so that we are really juiced up and we're not starting to see the fragments on the wall, right? Like the fine hairlines that you see on a concrete wall. You don't want that. You don't want that. And especially if you've been to Mexico City, to Tokyo, places like that, if you're in a building and you see hairlines, you better be getting out of there. Because what that tells us is that there is a foundational problem when the earth moves, right? When there are earthquakes, they shake that up. And because of those things, they start breaking apart and that building is going to most likely collapse. So is your relationship. So you don't want to be seeing the fine lines. You don't want to see those lines in the walls happening and cracking your relationship. So what is it that you want to do? Is you want to create that solid foundation by what? By being so clear in what is it that we can contribute. What is it that we can do together to bring it together? Okay, so that how is it that we can make this happen? And what is it that you want? What is it that I want? Be so clear. This is what I want to bring to the relationship. This is what I want to have. Oh, hi. Hello, my dear. Welcome. So happy that we are here today on this episode talking about why relationships fail. So we were talking about two things so far, right? And we are saying there's a lack of agreements. There's expectations that are ruining our relationship. And there's when we don't come to the same agreement, when we have a difference of opinion. But if you are committed to making this work, then what you want to do is have conversations. And they don't need to be long. Men don't usually like to have long conversations. In women, we get a high out of being able to communicate through words. That's how we get excited and we feel that we're connecting by words. That's what women do, right? If you don't believe me, then just go to a girls' club and dinners and breakfast and it's all the words that we have to say. But men don't always necessarily are so open to talk about your issues, right? If you're a man, let me know. Are you really open to say, hey, yeah, let's discuss this, baby? Oh, yes, let's give it to me. 3 hours of what? It's more like torture. And how do I know? Because I work with men, especially when I'm working with a couple. Men are dragged by their teeth to do a 2-day intensive so that we can transform their relationship. But that's not necessarily more of a masculine trait, right? So yeah, thank you for, because it's so right. So what is it that you can do is simply come up at a time where you say, you know what, let's have a state of the union time. Let's talk about you and me at certain times where we're really talking about meaningful. Like, we can hang out, we can have adventure, we can have fun, we can do all the things that we usually do, but let's dedicate certain time so that you and I can talk about what's really important. What's really important. Okay, so I have a comment here that it says, when a man is open with his emotions is when the relationship grows. Yeah, that is so true. But men don't necessarily always learn how to communicate their emotions, right? I was just having a session with one of my clients, and he's going through a very rough time with his dad, and he's in the hospital, and doctors having difficult conversations with the family, and he's crying, and he was saying, you know what, I'm sorry, I apologize. And I said, why? Tell me what is so wrong about crying when you're hurting. The body has a voice. The body wants to give expression, right, to our emotions. And if I come and pinch you right now, tell me something. Are you really just going to be quiet like nothing happened? Or are you going to scream top of your lungs? Because that's what the body does. It voices, it communicates the pain, and tears is a way for the body to say, the emotion to say, you know what, something might not be right. There's different tears, and there's there's tears of sadness, definitely. There's tears of joy, there's tears of love, but there's tears of sadness, and that's okay. That's okay. And this is called the human experience. So thank you for sharing that. Yes, so we're talking about why relationships fail and having the differences of opinions. Okay, so this is a point that I'm going to share with you about what happens when you want to go into a relationship and you don't think that you can actually match 100% with this person. Well, what I want you to do is to start, if you're going to start a relationship, not when you're on it, but if you're going to start a relationship, is to look at what are my non-negotiables? What are the things that I really want this person to have? But what are my non-negotiables, right? We are in an election time. So are you a Republican and I'm a Democrat, and I'm hardcore Democrat and you're a hardcore Republican, then we might not go very far, right? Because there's going to be difference of opinion that is so strong, right? Are you a vegan versus you're a total meat eater? And what are you doing with somebody like that because of difference of opinion? So it depends on what are your non-negotiables. Now, whether I like the wallpaper blue versus green, that's a different story, right? And that there is a process to create agreement so that you can have an amazing relationship where you are getting your cake and eating it as well. But it follows a formula. So we're talking about why relationships are not are failing, and mainly because of today's episode, difference of opinion. Okay, I have a comment here. Often, as many society and family teaches that tears of sadness are not allowed for men. Yes, that is so true. And thank you for sharing. Yes. And it's a sad thing because I'm going to invite you to do something if you can. And it's hold your breath. So what happens if right now we hold our breath for 10 seconds, 20, 30, a minute, 2 minutes? Anybody's going longer than 3 minutes holding your breath? Well, if you're Wayne Huffman, maybe, but otherwise, hardly anybody can hold breath for more than 3 minutes, right? But what happens when you let go? When you're holding your breath and you finally let it go, and you bring it out, you experience this. And it is how your body how your body feels when it releases something that it no longer needs. It can be anything, right? Anytime your body releases something that it no longer needs, you feel a sense of comfort. You feel a sense of wellness, of being okay. Tears do exactly that. Tears are meant to let out because you're releasing. There's tears of sadness, but there's tears of releasing that sadness, right? Of resolving those issues, because it is true that the emotions that don't show up, like you don't let them out one way, they're going to show up in a different way. They show up in embolias. They show up in heart attacks. They show up in stress. They show up in Alzheimer. They show up in so many different ways because they're boiled up. And what the emotions do is that they release different toxins in the body. So where are those toxins going to go? They go somewhere. They're not only thoughts. Your thoughts are invisible, but your feelings and emotions create a release of different toxins in your body, whether for good or for not so good. So many of the diseases are emotions that are not resolved or that we're just building down. So thank you for sharing this. Yes, super powerful. And if you are a man and you are a man that owns himself, it's okay to cry. And I get it that not by me only saying this makes it for you okay, or if you simply press the button and it's okay. Now I understand there is a process to allow for this to become a new identity or part of yourself, right? But it is so okay, and it's a beautiful thing to see a man being vulnerable, because then he can own his power. He can let go so that his strength can come out. His strength can be stronger, because now he doesn't have things that are holding him back. So it's a beautiful thing. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. And I'm going to share with you the third thing that you can do when you have a difference of opinion. Okay. When you cannot come to grips. We're talking about having your non-negotiables. But if you're in a relationship where you're already on it and you have such strong difference of opinions, you know what? I would invite you to get help, get professional help for somebody to bridge the gap. Because if you love this person, you need somebody to come and become, for example, what I do for my clients when I work with couples is I say, I become different things. I become a buffer. I become a shock absorber, right? Sometimes I'm a translator. I hear something that one tells me, and then I present it in a way where they are not crossing fingers and pointing fingers and it's you versus me, but we create resolution. So get somebody, get help, right? Maybe your dynamic in your relationship is not working because you are so standing in strong and you want to be right. You want to be so right about your position that it doesn't allow really for room for anybody to grow. So what happens when that happens? Well, what happens is that you go south and you start calling names and you start dividing yourself. And when there's a division, then no longer there is a relationship, because there's not oneness, there's no togetherness, right? It is me, I am right and you're wrong, and it's vice versa. No, you're wrong and I'm right, and that doesn't go very far. So get professional help with somebody that will do that. Will do the translator, will be the shock absorber, will be the mediator, right? And will help you to bring it together so that you can, without having to, sometimes it is challenging because you don't know how to do it. So get somebody that will help you. I'm definitely available, right? But that will help you bridge that gap so that you don't end up walking away, so that you don't end up with a broken relationship, especially if you have children. For the love of your children, do it, because children do become collateral damage when adults are standing in their ground of, I want to be right and you're wrong. And is that right? So this is what I'm inviting you to do today is get the help and invest in yourself. Grow together, make a commitment to grow together, so that regardless of the differences, we can celebrate the differences versus fighting for the differences, right? Versus being with you despite the difference. It's I want to love you, and we agree that we agree to disagree. We're not always going to be in 100% of agreement, but what if we could agree to disagree? Right? So these are my tips for today. This is relationships, why relationships fail. Episode number 3. Soraya Otana here with you, your relationship and expert coach and results coach. And if you have a challenge, if you find that you're stuck in your life, well, I have an invitation for you, which is I'm going to put here in the comments. I'm going to put a link so that you can come to my webinar where you're going to learn how to get unstuck. It can be in your relationships. It can be in your finances. It can be your business. Maybe you're a solopreneur. And right now I'm working with solopreneurs that are stuck, right? So that's part of your relationship with yourself. So I'm inviting you to come, have let's talk. Drop me a note and send me a message if you want to improve your relationship. Send me a DM, and what I'm going to do is I am going to send you a document, so that a PDF that I prepared, so that you can have that. Okay, so here's where you can, I'm dropping here in the comments a link so that you can book your session, and let's talk more about you. Let's talk about what's going on in your life, in your world, in your relationships, and how we can take you to the next level. Because it doesn't matter if you are in the basement, in the penthouse, there is a new level that you can go, and a new level equals new devil, and therefore you want to be able to have somebody lead you and guide you. Okay, so thank you so much for being here. Here are the links. Click, send me a note, send me a message, send me some love, show me some love, give me a like, give me a heart. Tell me something. Tell me that something about this is serving you. Okay, and in the meantime, you know how to reach me right there. You can book a session. Thank you. Have a great rest of the day, and God bless you. Ciao, ciao.